Yes, it is.
He's been canceled, fired, written off more times than you can count, and yet keeps coming back louder, funnier, and more unapologetic than ever.
How the hell else am I gonna light my cigarette?
He is Adam Carolla, a blue-collar brainiac who grew up poor without a lot of nurturing or support from his parents, and against all odds went from pounding nails as a carpenter to pounding out punchlines as a comic on the national stage.
Cross the line there, Canadians.
He rose to fame co-hosting Loveline with Dr. Drew Pinsky and The Man Show with good friend Jimmy Kimmel.
What they want you to believe is once you marry them, they magically get hornier. This is a diabolical plan to trick us into commitment.
Then burst onto the scene with a blockbuster podcast that set records with hugely popular rants around the failures of woke progressives and Hollywood elites, intent on defending the right to offend.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
He is frequently described as a voice for fed-up white men. Whether on air in his books or documentaries, his job, he says, is to push boundaries and not conform to mainstream expectations.
Sidewalks falling apart, garbage everywhere.
Today, his podcast remains one of the most downloaded in the world, proving you can't cancel Carolla.
You're too close to the front door.
Comedian, actor, producer, author Adam Carolla. He is today's LA Story. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of LA Stories. I'm Giselle Fernandez, and we are here in the Glendale, really cool warehouse of the fearless, the bold Adam Carolla. Thanks for inviting us into your space. Did you like that?
Yeah. I'm fine. I just say what I think, you know?
You know, I had such a kick out of reading your incredibly multifaceted career, but you've been canceled, you've been written off, you've been fired more times than most people change their cell phones, and keep coming back and succeeding against all odds. What's your secret?
I sort of knew that I was going to have to operate or exist sort of outside of the sort of the mainstream system, because I would probably say something or do something that if I worked for the Disney Corporation or ABC or ESPN or something like that, I'd probably end up getting fired.
Your shows are all kind of either controversial or offensive, depending on who you're talking to. And yet, you never seem to buckle to convention. Where did you get that?
I don't think I really got it from anybody. I just thought if I'm going to do comedy, I can't be thinking about who's listening and how that would affect them.
You don't let that happen.
I don't picture that person. I picture nobody listening all the time. No one in my family ever listened to anything. So I would say whatever I wanted because I knew they didn't hear it. And I treat it that way with everybody.
But when people say, oh, you're offensive or you're sexist, what do you say to them?
Well, if I'm accurate, then I don't care.
I am almost unwrongable.
My job is to be accurate, not worry about who's being offended. I did it through COVID. They were lying about it. And then they're calling other people and saying disinformation, except for they were lying. So I don't trust those people.
You don't buy into any notion that this was a once-in-a-century pandemic and people didn't know better. They were acting out of an abundance of caution to save lives?
No, I don't. I mean, it sounds good when you say it, but you're the one who got duped. I didn't get duped. They knew what they were doing. Gavin Newsom shut the beaches based on zero science.
Well, there was an unprecedented pandemic. Maybe people didn't know enough.
They ruined kids by closing schools. They ruined it.
But is there any kind of grace for not knowing and wanting to operate under an abundance of caution?
No, not when you're destroying societies and taking away liberties. No.
There were more deaths from COVID in red states than blue states.
I know, that's your angle.
That's not my angle. This is facts
outdoor
and
dining.
data.
No one prevented anything with shutting down schools or outdoor dining.
How do you think we're ever going to find any common ground? You know, the news markets are
they should
siloed.
stop lying. They covered COVID. They lied about it.
The 2020 election was not stolen, was it?
It wasn't stolen in the ballot box. It was stolen in the media. There was a big case involving Joe Biden, who is corrupt and whose family's corrupt. And there was a laptop and there was information and it was out there and the media suppressed it and big tech suppressed it to aid Joe Biden. And people say if they knew the full story, they might have voted differently. Like 20% of people said that. So that is a media-driven suppression of votes.
I think that there has to be a harsh light and scrutiny on all media, progressive, liberal media, but also conservative media. Do you not see as well,
Well, I agree.
Conservative media that had to pay out $1 billion to Dominion for lying about the 2020 election is also egregious?
Right.
I'm just asking
But
you,
here's the problem.
do you create equivalency and see it clearly on both sides?
No. And the reason I don't is, let's say they go, well, Fox is over here and CNN's over there, so it sort of balances out. But it's not CNN, it's LA Times, New York Times, NPR, AP. They're all on that side. They're all left-leaning.
So are you telling me from your lens that conservative media is...
It's a higher batting average. Fox has a higher
But why do
batting
you
average.
play down the lies from the right and play up the lies on the left?
Well, I live in a state that's being destroyed by the left, so I'm sort of dealing with it,
All right.
you know.
You've been very vocal about cancel culture and the danger of cancel culture, particularly on comedians and on stage. You have said this is all about free speech, even if it's offensive to you. Gender, identity politics, race, you go there. You made the LGBTQ and the GLAAD community unhappy when you went after Bert and Ernie. There are women, who believe you objectified them with, some of your comments on The Man Show.
They should get over it. What do they care?
Worst moments in man history. Men give women the right to vote.
All thanks to the woman's suffrage movement.
Led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, pioneers in the field of bitching, moaning, and complaining.
I don't care. Why do I care about you people? Just do whatever you want or shut up. Like, I don't want to hear about it all the time. This whole country is falling apart because this group and that group and that group and this group and this community and that community, they don't care. They don't help. They're fine.
You align with the Republican Party, obviously. Really go after progressives.
Well, I mean, Gavin Newsom's ruining California. He's horrible. There's something wrong with him.
Why do you go after him so fiercely and, the Hollywood elite?
Because he's a sociopath. And he's ruining California. And then I live in California.
Fourth largest economy in the world.
Nothing to do with him. Go step over 1,000 homeless people on your way back to your home.
So what is your goal then in your comedy? To influence or to preach to the converted?
I don't really have a goal. I just say something I think is funny or something I think is true.
But what is the value today, either on a podcast or on a comedic stage, to demoralize, decimate, just let's say to call the governor of California, a moron?
I want him to leave so he stops destroying California.
So you do use your platform to try and then create and activate change?
I say whatever I think about everything all the time.
Are you as tough on Republicans?
No, because I agree with them.
Does your politics get in the way of you getting gigs in Hollywood? And does it only silo you to certain stages and audiences?
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming it does. It doesn't help.
It doesn't, but you're okay with that.
Well, I don't know that I have a choice. I mean, it's not a popularity contest, in my opinion.
But does it hurt your career?
Well, I'm rich. I don't care. I'm funnier than everybody, so I get to do what I want. I mean, those are kind of the rules, I made movies that were very highly rated and very awarded and so on and so forth. I never got any of them into Sundance. No one at Sundance liked me. Now, if they liked me, or they hadn't been pretentious pricks, and just done it based on the actual work.
You think it was because of your politics, your right-wing politics?
Listen, I mean, look, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes and look up my docs, they're higher rated than the ones that win the Academy Awards, but I'm not invited to that. That's how it works. Now, ultimately it makes them because they're the ones that are doing they're the ones who never stop talking about discriminating, but will happily discriminate against me with my docs in their film festival. If I had crafted my career better, then I would be welcome into Sundance.
Or your politics.
When's the last time you heard Tom Cruise talk about Black Lives Matter or COVID or anything? These people shut up for a reason. They want to go to Sundance.
Let me ask you this though. What role does someone like you have, let's say, in framing public discourse? When you are so demoralizing, you disintegrate the other side and their perspective. How is that helpful? As opposed to, hold on, finding a way to share your perspective without completely decimating the other side that has its perspective.
Yeah, I think that used to be a thought about a way to go, but it turned out the LA Unified School District shut my kid's school down for a year and a half. If you said anything about reopening the schools, they basically just called you a racist or an elitist or something, whatever they did. And it became clear that it wasn't really a bargaining thing. You had to try to shame them or destroy them, essentially, which is sort of where we're at now.
So how do we get out of that dynamic so we can find some common ground?
The left has to stop coming out with the worst ideas in the world. As long as you want to shut schools down, then you're not going to have any common ground.
And the right, what does the right have to do?
They want to be left alone. Stop shutting schools and stop shutting beaches, and there'll be plenty of common ground. Stop telling everyone what to do all the time, and then there'll be plenty of common ground. We'll get along fine.
Adam, you're described as the voice for fed-up white men. Why do you think white men in America feel so alienated or targeted by the progressive politics of the times?
At some point, the group that's getting sort of pushed out to make room is going to have their own feelings about it. Nobody cares about white guys, heterosexual guys, you know. So they became that group. Now, not all white guys grew up with privilege. There's some sort of misnomer that, like, you grew up this way. I grew up poor, and I dug ditches and worked on construction sites. I didn't have any money. I didn't go to college. I didn't have anything. So I didn't grow up with the silver spoon thing, which is fine. I figured it out. It's just when people assume, oh, you didn't have any problems because you're a white guy, then that's an inaccurate assumption.
You've written many books, and one was on gender politics and masculinity. It's called In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks. And other complaints from an angry middle-aged white guy.
Yeah, but that book was mostly just a comedy book.
But it was also poignant, and it really kind of...
Oh, you gotta be truthful.
How do we bring progressives and conservatives together on what looks like healthy masculinity moving forward?
All the sort of conservative people I know, they basically want to be left alone. They want their gun, and they don't want you to take their gun, you know, and they want to drive their internal combustion vehicle, and they don't want it to be outlawed, and they want to put a deck on their house and not have to pull 15 permits from the city. They want to go to a hockey game and not have it be gay pride night. They just want to go to a hockey game. Leaving them alone would probably be the best way to get them in the tent.
Among your many books that you've written, you did President Me, The America That's in My Head, the fantasy of how you would lead the United States if you were at the helm. In your vision for fixing America, what is the most important value or principle that you think has been lost from this nation, and how would you restore it?
I'd say nuclear family. Mom, dad, family, intact.
Like the
raise your
1950s
kids.
version?
Yeah, real old school.
Where women
50s.
aren't working and they're not in the boardroom. And
Yeah, it's better. It's a better society.
back then.
Well, 10 minutes ago for a family that stays together, yeah.
You also wrote a book called Rich Man, Poor Man. It was about access to the American dream. So who still, in your mind, has access to that dream?
Anyone who wants to work.
Do you really believe that?
Yeah. I don't know anyone who works real hard that doesn't have a good life. Do you?
Well, I think it's harder for some than others.
Who?
I'm not going to go there with you.
Gay community, the Hispanic community. What year are you living in? What year do you think this is?
I'm not here as a Democratic progressive strategist to argue with you.
I'd argue. That's what I do.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of your lens on America comes from your childhood, and we're going to get into the influences that shape not just your political life, but your comedic life when LA Stories comes right back. Welcome back to LA Stories with the unapologetic and bold and irreverent Adam Carolla. You grew up in North Hollywood. You said that your upbringing was marked by a lot of financial hardship and family neglect.
I wasn't really raised, but I just kind of lived with these people. They didn't have any money.
And no nurturing, like birthday parties and talking to you and going to ball games, anything like that?
My parents were very hands-off and sort of at a distance. I just grew up like a, raccoon in a dumpster. I don't, birthdays and cards and stuff.
Did your birthdays get celebrated?
No.
No.
I mean, we didn't celebrate anything.
They didn't take a lot of interest in you.
No, we just kind of raised ourselves, So I ended up spending a lot of time at other people's houses eating a lot of their food, basically.
I heard you were a pretty good football player, and that's what kind of saved you, sports?
The lessons of football were like super important, taught me a lot.
Gave you self-esteem.
It was good to be good at something, yeah.
You did not receive your high school diploma until years later, I understand, because you had some kind of library card fee or fine, and they held, is that for real? Is that a real story?
Yeah, well, I owed the book room money, and so I didn't have the money, and so, but I also, when I graduated high school, I was digging ditches.
Not only digging ditches, carpet cleaning, carpentry for 13 years. You wrote about it too. You tried to get a job at a fast food joint, Taco Bell, and you were even rejected from that.
It was.
How did that all shape your outsider status and your persona?
I figured out that nobody was going to do me any favors, and I was just going to have to kind of outwork people. That's kind of where I got my sort of motivation from.
Do you think you'd be as funny as you are, or tap into, let's say, the heartbeat of what so many people in this country feel, had you not been through that experience?
I do feel that it liberated me because I grew up in poverty and I did blue-collar jobs and I worked at McDonald's and I worked with these people my whole life, basically. When people start talking to me about privilege or you don't know how other people have it and you've never been on the wrong side of the tracks and all that stuff, I just tell them that's how I grew up. So I can say whatever I want about it because I've been there. And then also, I don't know anyone who was really like poorer than I was for as long a stretch as I was poor, and now I'm a millionaire, and I worked.
You're also a boxing instructor, The Hammer, and this is when the sports guy, who happened to be Jimmy Kimmel, before he became Jimmy Kimmel, really opened a lot of doors for you, didn't it?
Yeah, well, 100%.
What about you two like really mesh and open so many doors for you?
I meet people a lot that are comedians who aren't really that funny. Now, part of the reason I say whatever I want and do whatever I want is because I'm funny, and I know I am. But once in a while, you run into people that are actually funny, like really talented.
And Jimmy was one of them.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you're funny. And he felt that way about me. He was the first guy that ever really said that to me. Like, he was like, oh, you're good. And then we immediately just went, well, then we should do stuff together. He's an exquisitely generous and thoughtful person. He's just that kind of guy. I'm not a thoughtful person at all, at all.
Pretty proud of yourself of what you've been able to do?
I'm probably proud of diversity of things I've been able to do. You write a book and then you make a documentary about a more serious subject matter. And then you do a podcast, and then you make a romantic comedy. Just doing lots of different things.
That's what's really insightful and impressive about you, the many things you do, the many passions that you have, and we're going to dive into those when LA Stories comes right back. Welcome back to LA Stories, everyone. We're here with prolific author, podcast host, and documentarian, and so much more, Adam Carolla. So among the many things you do, you're also a serious car collector. What is behind you?
That is a Datsun 510 that was built by a company called BRE.
I understand you have Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and what are they called, Miuras from the 60s, 70s? Is that what they're called?
I sold my Miuras.
You
I
did?
wish I had them. They're worth millions of dollars now. I have race cars. Most of my stuff is race cars.
And you love racing, obviously.
I've done a few docs. Did one about Paul Newman's racing career. So I was kind of an expert on him. I knew the history of the cars. He was an interesting guy. First part of his life was acting, and the second half of his life was racing, and he was very dedicated to racing.
You were on Pawn Stars with your collection. But then you had your own car show on Speed TV. Does it make you go crazy when they cancel it after one season? It's happened to you several times.
No, I never know. It's a low percentage business, you know. It's a low percentage business, and you have to be prepared for stuff to work, stuff not to work.
Are you enjoying this all about you?
Yeah, because it should be somewhat inspirational. Because I was so miserable, I needed to do something else. But it was sort of born from misery, really.
And politics, born from that misery too. Your political lens on life is born from that foundation, isn't it?
I guess. For me, I just see what works and what doesn't work. And if I see a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, then I yell about it.
I've enjoyed this discourse, and thank you. You've widened my aperture to the comedic political landscape.
I'm an aperture spreader, baby.
Adam Carolla, thank you so much for being on LA Stories.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching another edition. I'm Giselle Fernandez. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest information, balanced coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.